Good morning, it's 11 o'clock. Welcome to your weekly Coffee with Diver webinar. Today's presenter is Bob Corr. Bob is the CEO of DBI in Ireland and he is going to talk about ProDiver 7.1. His presentation will take around 20 minutes and afterwards there is room for questions. You can use the Q&A panel below your screen. It's time for the webinar now. Grab your cup of coffee. Bob, good luck. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Lieven. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. Over the last number of weeks, the Coffee with Diver webinars have focused on Diveport and have shown all attendees the power and usage of Diveport and its newer functionality that some of you may or may not have been aware of. Today's webinar is focused on the desktop client, ProDiver, and specifically the latest version 7.1, with its new look and feel as well as new functionality. Basically, ProDiver has had a facelift. ProDiver, I'm going to have a little brief history of ProDiver, but ProDiver, as you know, is a desktop client of Dimensional Insights Diver platform. With the power of ProDiver, without the power of ProDiver, none of the Diveport demos that you saw in previous webinars could have been possible, as most of the Diveport pages you saw contain a collection of markers that were created with ProDiver and published on the Diveport portal. ProDiver, as you know, enables users to perform advanced ad hoc diving and report creation. And all of the end-user functionality of the software is contained within ProDiver. I'm going to start this presentation with a brief history of ProDiver. In the early days, the client was simply called Diver and worked in file server mode, where users could only interrogate a single model. These models were limited to 12 core dimensions and had limited security capabilities. Over time, DI developed the server-side software which enabled ProDiver to read multiple models contained in a dive plan. DiveLine was later released, enabling thin client access to models, where users are authenticated by the server and mouse and keyboard clicks are sent to the server for processing, and the results returned to ProDiver on the desktop for display and manipulation purposes. During the development cycle of ProDiver, the report writer was added, and dimension limit was up from 12 dimensions to 32 core dimensions. Since the initial development, extra functionality has been added to ProDiver over time, and some of these are time series and period calculations, new calculations, dynamic dimensions were added, and then tunnel functionality was added to build live models. There's been one constant over time. The man-machine interface has remained simple and effective from day one. With the release of Diver Platform 7.0, DI introduced its Spectre engine with columnar databases that are stored in memory when in use, and this memory is shared across all users on the server. DI Spectre technology to us is a game changer and now permits organizations to process much larger data volumes in much shorter time frames, resulting in extremely fast response time for users. More anon. From its relatively humble beginnings in the early 1990s, the desktop Diver client has come a long way with its intuitive and easy to use interface. So, what's changed in 7.1? Well, here's an itemized list of what is in ProDiver, and we will go through 7.1, and we'll go through these in order. So these are in no particular order of importance. The console has been revamped. The menu and toolbars have been organized. Switch dimension functionality has been implemented to replicate Diveport functionality. There's been changes to the tabular windows. Quick views have changes, and some of the dialogues have changed. And there's been font changes as well. And some larger dialog boxes can be resized. Okay, so the first main one is the console changes. The console window now defaults to the left side of the screen. It can be dragged back to the right if preferred. And new icons are used throughout the console, including dive arrows, category icons, and the actions listed in the history section. It is more modern looking, and a new toolbar on top for searching dimensions and expanding and collapsing console categories. The tabs for Dive A, Dive B, Dive C, and Dive D have now been moved to the bottom, where previously they were at the top. The menus and toolbars, well, the toolbars are larger, more modern looking toolbars, and the menus have been reorganized to have shorter menus. For example, the very long edit menu has had some items moved elsewhere, such as the new data menu. The various save items on the file menu have been moved to a submenu as well. Similarly, tabular, graph, and split window features now use submenus. On the toolbar, there are now pull-downs, not only for recent use files, but also for interacting with a dive book, tabulars, reports, and graphs. The graph and report window toolbars have been refreshed, and the right-click context menus for tabular windows has been organized and shortened so as to be less overwhelming. So the focus and group icons change when used, and an X, a red X, indicates that clicking on them again stops the action. The tabular window, as you can see, now has a default color scheme. The scheme can be changed from the preference dialog as before, as you know, but the highlighting of cells is now gentler, rather than just inverting colors. Also, the grid lines are lighter. The column labels are no longer bold, and overall, it has a much less harsh appearance, and a default font is now changed to MS Sego UI. Switch dimension is a very, very powerful function within ProDiver now. So the vertical dimension in the tabular window can be changed. This is done by clicking on the title of the dimension on the column you want to change and using the console to choose its replacement. A new icon appears, and the down arrows now change to circular arrows, meaning that you can switch dimensions. In a multi-tab, any of the dimensions can be switched. This also works in the report window. Unfortunately, this feature is not supported in graphs at this time, so hopefully it will be shortly. And it simplifies the entire diving process. So this is an example of the new Add Column dialog box. It's larger, less constrained, and bolder and bigger. And all the dialog boxes use the new default font. So the Select Columns box is now resizable also. Quick views have had a facelift. So the background of the quick view area is now a blue color. Quick view text is larger and uses the new font. The spacing and layout has been improved, and widths around it to reduce a staggered appearance. ProDiver, with switching dimensions, enables us to reduce clutters. And in actual fact, we'll demonstrate this. Multiple markers can be replaced by one marker. We're all familiar with markers based on the same C-base or model. So we'd name them differently, but a lot of these can be reduced to simply one marker, giving a load of possible combinations and permutations available. And we'll see this in the demonstration later. The one other good thing about ProDiver is that ProDiver Help is now available online. On the Help menu, you click on Help, and it directs you online to the Dimensional Insight website, where there's ProDiver Help. This help is fantastic and contains tips and videos, as well as full published documentation for ProDiver. And I would personally urge all you ProDiver users to explore this great new addition to ProDiver. Okay, so summary then, ProDiver has evolved over time and continues to be enhanced by DI. The ability to add more than 32 dimensions, it is now unlimited, is made possible by the Spectre engine that creates C-bases. C-base technology, as I said, gives us fast performance on large data sets, and the power of ProDiver is only as good as the underlying technology, which is being constantly developed by DI, and to us as long-term partners is a fantastic achievement. Okay, I'm going to stop this presentation now, and I'm going to jump into a quick live demo of ProDiver. So, without further ado, if I double click on ProDiver, I get the following display. So you'll see that I'm signed onto my local machine. I'm prompted with a username and password. In a single sign-on environment, this would not happen. You can see that the connection is encrypted. I'm clicking OK. The first thing to notice is I've set up a default dive book for this user. And dive book has been changed as well to make it brighter, bigger, and more slightly different look and feel. So, as you know, a dive book consists of areas and topics. And in this example here, I have one area and a couple of topics. So the first thing I'm going to do is open a C-base with a dive plan. And the first thing you notice is that the console defaults to the left. Now, call me old-fashioned, but I'm used to the console being on the right, so I'm just going to drag it over to the right. And then that will be saved in my ProDiver.ini file for future usage. So the first thing to notice on the console is that there are a little toolbar, search dimensions, and these buttons expand and collapse categories. So I have a demo model here, and many users will be familiar with this demo DRL CBase. So I have just logically grouped some dimensions into categories. So clicking on the plus button here expands all the categories. And we can see that the icons have changed. The down arrows are lighter blue. And the usual, the number in brackets is the number of unique dimensions, not the number of records. Search dimensions, as I said, there are possibilities to have unlimited number of dimensions now, but on CBases with large number of dimensions, you might want to search for a couple of dimensions. So in this example, I just type in PROD, and I get reduce, filters the number of dimensions available to me to just 2 that begin with PROD. So this is very useful with large number, CBases with a large number of dimensions. So removing that filter brings them all back. So the first things first, the dimensions listed in the console categories are logical groupings only. There are no predefined drill paths, as we know. There are no hierarchies exist. You do not have to start in a predefined drill path. ProDiver is completely free form. So without further ado, if I give a little, do a dive, we can see that the new tabular window appears with its default fonts and less harsh appearance. Now, as we see, the toolbars become active, and some of them, as I say, have submenus, as we see, tabular, multi-tab, cross-tab, etc. So in this view, a diving is as simple as we know, selecting a dimension value, and the arrows reappear. So if I dive on year, month, and now if I select March, now my windows are stacked for this demonstration. They are overlapped, they can be stacked, and that is set in preferences. So if I dive on sales region now, I can now go here and multi-tab in, and the arrows change. So it's salesperson. And let's say I didn't want to see salesperson, I wanted to see the product family. I simply click on salesperson, and the arrows change to circular arrows, so I can put in the product family. Oh hell, I don't want product family. I want to see this by customer. And there's the customers. The same view and by the product name. So you see how fast it is. And then if I right click here, some of these context menus have changed. So if I want to say convert to parents to quick views, I can now choose any particular value I want, go to a different year, select a month, change dimension, and obviously it's designed to be fast. So if I multi-tab, I can multi-tab in lots of things here. Salesperson, SIC description, product name, and you can see how fast Diver is. So again, if I just shut this down for a start, I go back and I want to show other thing in relation to dialog boxes. So if I expand all of these and I dive on anything, I can say data menu, select columns, and there are lots of columns available to us that we can add through C-plans, and I just add in some columns. Again, if I can see, this is now expandable. If I want to add in, say, I don't know, Monday sales, Wednesday sales, Sunday sales, for instance. Again, I just get them displayed in like so. So if I go close this down, I'll just revert back to some other examples I have here. So we said that dive A, dive B, dive C, and dive D have now moved to the bottom. I've just created a simple marker that shows the functionality. So all of these windows, 2 report windows, 2 tabular windows, different dimensions for a particular month. Changing it will update every single window. And that is an example of dive A, dive B, and dive C, and dive D in a marker. I'll go back to the dive book now and show you another example. So here is a sample tabular report. Now, this shows the functionality I mentioned earlier of reducing clutter. So one marker can be used multiple times to produce multiple reports. So we have a time series here. We have a period we want to see. These are in list quick views and the summary column we want to look at. So first of all, if I change the date, I just click on go and the numbers change. But I'm looking at year to date. But if I want to see month to date, I just choose month to date, click on go. Or if I want to see quarter to date, I simply choose quarter to date and the numbers change. But hey, I don't want to see revenue, I want to see our margin. So click on go and that changes. So again, if I go back here to the latest data model, but hey, I don't want to see this by product family. I want to see this by salesperson. There's the information for salesperson. If I click on salesperson again, I can see this by product family, or I can see this by sales region. So some of the other things to notice here is if I go back into here, this is the same marker, but in a report window. And just to show you that it works in a report window, I can simply click on sales region and change that to say salesperson, and it changes. So the last example I have is a sample crosstab report, and it gives us the ability, we can see that the new fonts, and there, if I unlock toolbar on the report, you can see that the toolbar icons on the report writer have changed as well. So that's pretty much all I want to show in relation to ProDiver. It's been a huge expanding assistance in this. Is also about the help. The help is completely online now. So again, as I said, I would urge you to look at this. Look at new features. Shows you about new features. You click on ProDiver help. Shows you what it is. So if I go back, I can go back and say, look at, there's hints and videos on doing lots of things. So I'd urge everybody to look at this. And I'm just going to revert back to the presentation. Just one final slide I just want to bring up. So the last thing is to give an indication of the difference between the traditional model building exercise and Spectre technology. So the raw data consists of 46 million rows, it's 215 columns and 102 gig of text. Okay, so a marker then is 9-dimensional multi-tabs using 6 summaries, resulting in 230,000 rows. So in the classic model technology, it took 3 hours to build, but in Spectre, 24 minutes. The C-base and model sizes, 227 gigs and 51 models, but in Spectre, it's only 20 gigs. It took 70 minutes to open the marker that did 9 multi-tabs and 6 summaries, but in Spectre, it only took 3 seconds. And once dives are done in Spectre, they are cached and stored in memory. So that's it, all I have to talk about today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll hand you back to Lieven.
Thank you very much, Bob. That was an impressive example that you just gave us. There are a lot of questions. I will pick out 2. First is Barbara. She would like to know whether there are report templates provided with ProDiver.
Yes, there are. There are sample templates available when you click in the report writer, but a lot of people tend to create their own templates in the report writer. You can unlock a report and add logos, change color schemes, alternate color coding, etc., and save that as a template. And the whole ethos is create once, use many. So if you create a report template, you can apply it to any style of tabular display that you have, because a report is only a tabular window rendered into a report.
Okay, then a second question, that's a combined question from both Chris and Emmett. The asterisk in ProDiver indicates that it's a dynamic dimension, right?
Yes.
What is a dynamic dimension? What is that?
Okay, a dynamic dimension stems from history. It is basically when there was a limit on the number of core dimensions, you could use an info field as a dynamic dimension. So using an info field, if it had a one-to-one relationship between the value of the dimension and the value of an information field in ProDiver, you could promote that to be a dynamic dimension, and the diving and the summarization will be based on the core dimension and done on the fly. So in essence, it's redundant in Spectre technology, but it's a hangover from history.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob. Those questions that weren't answered will be answered later today by email. I want to thank you very much for this good presentation. And I also would like to invite all of you to attend next week's presentation on DiveTap. DiveTap is Dimensional Insights phone and tablet-based mobile technology. For now, I want to wish you a very good day, and I really look forward to seeing you and meeting you all next week.